A royal heir on the run, a hidden voice in the dark, and a power that could save or shatter entire worlds. What would you do if the fate of a galaxy rested in your hands? When Princess Naira is hunted by a ruthless enemy and guided by a mysterious protector, she discovers secrets buried deep beneath stone and steel, and choices that will change everything. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and show a big thumbs up by liking the video. Now, let's dive into this unforgettable and powerful story. The stars outside the viewing window of the royal cruiser Celestia shimmered like scattered diamonds in the endless black. Princess Naira leaned her head against the cold glass, watching them quietly, her thoughts wandering far from the endless meetings and formal dinners that made up her royal life. The galaxy was vast, full of life and danger, but to her it felt distant. She had always lived behind polished walls and surrounded by guards who never smiled. Even the sound of laughter was rare among the crew these days. Everyone was always busy. Her parents, the king and queen of Veroni, were off-world, deep in diplomatic talks again. That left Naira traveling alone with the royal fleet on yet another long journey she hadn't chosen. The ship hummed steadily, a comforting sound she'd grown used to over the years. She turned from the window and began walking back toward her quarters when the entire cruiser suddenly jolted. The floor shook beneath her, lights flickered, and then everything went red. A shrill alarm blared through the halls. Naira stumbled but caught herself against the wall. A robotic voice echoed through the speaker systems, cold and sharp. "Warning, unknown vessels approaching. Defensive systems activated. Prepare for possible impact." Her breath caught. She spun around and ran toward the nearest communication panel, slamming her hand on it. "Captain Tolan, report. What's going on?" Only static answered her at first, then something worse. A strange voice, not human, not familiar. Low, almost hollow. "Princess Naira of Veroni," it said. "Surrender your vessel. Your life will be spared. Your people will survive." Naira's pulse raced. That voice was not from any part of her crew. It sounded alien, distorted. She stepped back, fear settling deep in her chest. Before she could respond, another explosion rocked the ship, stronger this time. The lights above her burst with sparks, and smoke began to seep from the corridor ahead. The walls groaned under pressure, and she knew she had only moments to act. She turned to flee, aiming for the escape bay, but the hallway ahead was filled with fire and debris. A wall had collapsed, blocking her path. Her lungs burned as smoke filled the air. Panic pressed in around her like a weight. Then, a voice, clear, calm, and strangely familiar, spoke from her communicator. "Go left." She froze. Who said that? No time to explain. Go left. Trust me. It wasn't the alien voice. This one was deep, steady. It carried no panic, only urgency. Naira didn't know why, but something in her gut said to listen. She turned left, away from the smoke, and ran. Explosions thundered behind her. The lights flickered as if the ship itself was crying out. "Open the second door on your right," the voice said again. She found it, slammed her palm against the panel, and the door slid open. A maintenance tunnel, small and dark. "Get in," the voice said. With no other choice, she crawled inside. The metal walls were tight and the air smelled like oil and dust. Just as the door sealed behind her, heavy footsteps echoed outside. She peered through the vent and saw them, tall shadowy figures with glowing blue visors, not human. They moved with eerie silence and scanned the hallway. She held her breath, afraid even the sound of her heartbeat might give her away. "What are they?" she whispered. "Raiders," the voice replied. "They're after you. Keep moving," she crawled, the narrow tunnel twisting and turning, every sound louder in the tight space. Her muscles ached, her knees scraped against the floor. But the voice never left her. It guided her at every corner, every choice. "Left, now climb. Deck 4, hurry." Finally, she reached a vertical shaft. A ladder stretched upward into darkness. "Climb fast," the voice urged. "There's an escape pod just ahead." She climbed, her fingers slipping from sweat. Her body trembled with exhaustion, but she didn't stop. At the top, the hatch opened with a soft hiss. Just a few steps away was a pod, her chance to escape. But standing in her way were two of the raiders, their eyes glowing like twin fires. "They're here," she whispered. "Grab the tool on your left," the voice said. She spotted a heavy wrench, picked it up with shaking hands. "Throw it to the far wall. On my count. 3, 2, 1, now." She hurled it. The metal clanged loudly across the floor. The raiders turned. "Run!" the voice commanded. Naira ran, feet pounding the floor. The raiders turned, weapons rising, but from the shadows came a burst of blinding light. Energy blasts. The creatures fell before they could fire. Naira dove into the pod. The hatch sealed and the countdown began. Through the pod's window she saw the Celestia, her ship, her home, burning as enemy ships surrounded it. Her chest tightened. Her world had fallen apart in moments. The voice returned, softer now. "You're safe. For now." Tears welled in her eyes. "Who are you?" A pause, then a reply that stirred something deep in her heart. "I'm your protector. I've always been here, even when you didn't know it." As the pod sped toward the unknown, Naira leaned back, questions flooding her mind. She didn't know where she was going or who had just saved her life, but for the first time she felt something strange. Hope. The escape pod slammed into the dusty surface of the forgotten moon, skidding across jagged rocks before grinding to a stop. Inside, Princess Naira slowly opened her eyes. Her head throbbed, and her body ached from the crash. The pod was dark except for the blinking emergency lights and the low hum of failing systems. She reached for the door release, and with a hiss of pressure it opened. A rush of cold air filled the cabin. Outside, the world was gray and silent. Sharp peaks rose in the distance like the broken bones of a long-dead giant. The ground crunched beneath her boots as she stepped into the pale light of a distant sun, its rays weak and cold. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering as a low wind whispered across the barren landscape. Then came the voice again, steady and calm, as if it had never left. "You need to move. The crash may have sent out a signal. They could be tracking it." "You're back," she whispered. "I never left," the voice replied. Naira scanned the horizon. There was nothing but empty rock and sky. "Where do I go?" "There's an old mining station hidden near the ridge. It was abandoned years ago, but it holds something important. Your refuge." She didn't question it. She didn't have the strength to argue. Her legs felt heavy, but she began walking, guided by the voice. Each step took effort as the uneven terrain scraped at her boots and the wind stung her face. Time felt strange on the moon. She didn't know how long she walked before she reached the ridge. When she looked down the other side, her breath caught. Below was a crater, and at its center lay a rusted metal hatch half covered by rock and dust. "Clear the entrance," the voice instructed. She slid down the slope, dust billowing around her. The hatch was marked with faded human letters. Project Guardian. She traced them with her fingers. "What is this place?" she asked. "Step back," the voice said. Naira obeyed. A faint sound came from below. The hatch split in two, slowly opening to reveal a staircase leading into darkness. Cool air rushed out, carrying the scent of old machines. The stairs lit up faintly. As she descended, one cautious step at a time. At the bottom was a wide chamber filled with dust-covered consoles, blinking lights, and dead monitors. As she stepped inside, the light slowly came to life, casting soft glows across long-forgotten surfaces. Holographic projectors flickered on, showing blueprints of ships and diagrams of artificial beings. She walked to the center where a single chair stood surrounded by cables and a faintly glowing ring above it. "Where are we?" she asked again. "This was once the command center of a defense program. It was called Project Guardian. Your father helped build it during the last great Va." Naira turned slowly. "You knew my father?" "Yes," the voice said. "He entrusted me with your safety. I'm not just a voice. I'm what's left of someone who once served him. My name is Rowan. She blinked. Rowan. I've heard that name. My father's old war journals. He always said Rowan was his most trusted ally. I was, Rowan replied. When the war ended, our existence was erased to protect the project. I was one of many. Humans who became something more. I'm now a synthetic intelligence built to defend the royal line. And you, Naira, are its last living member. She backed up slightly, overwhelmed by what she was hearing. Why didn't anyone tell me? Why didn't my father? He didn't want you to carry the burden, not unless it became necessary. On a nearby console, an old file lit up. Naira walked over and tapped the screen. A video began to play, her father, younger and weary, standing beside Rowan in human form. If you're seeing this, her father's voice said, then the shadows we tried to outrun have returned. The Guardian was designed not to destroy but to protect. Trust him. He will keep you safe. Naira swallowed hard. Her father had known something like this would happen. He had planned for it. Tears stung her eyes. Why are they after me? She asked softly. Because of what's beneath us, Rowan said. This facility holds the access point to a power source. Ancient, powerful, dangerous. Only someone with royal DNA can activate it. That's why you're their target. They want to use you to unlock something that can change the fate of worlds. Suddenly, alarms lit up across the consoles. Red lights flashed. Rowan's voice grew sharper. They've found us. Enemy ships are entering orbit. We don't have long. What do I do? Naira asked, trying to keep her voice from shaking. There's a defense system, but it hasn't been used in decades. You need to insert your bracelet into the core control panel. She found the slot and slid her bracelet in. The room lit up. Old weapon systems on the surface whirred to life. Turrets rose from hidden silos around the crater. Monitors showed enemy ships swerving to avoid the first blasts. A small victory. Naira exhaled. That bought us some time, Rowan said. But they'll be back, and in greater numbers. Naira looked at the empty chair with the glowing ring. What else is hidden down here? Truth, Rowan replied quietly, and choices you're not ready for, but will have to face. The moon rumbled slightly beneath her feet as the first wave passed. Naira clenched her fists. She had always dreamed of life beyond her palace walls. Now she was living it, and the galaxy would never be the same. The walls of the underground base shook as another blast echoed from above. Dust rained down from the ceiling while red warning lights pulsed across the dim control room. Princess Naira stood at the main console, staring at the screen that showed the enemy ships landing just beyond the crater. The enemy was no longer simply searching, they were closing in. They had found her. Rowan's voice came through the communicator, still calm but with a new edge of urgency. They've broken through the outer perimeter. Ground troops will be at the entrance in minutes. Naira's hands trembled slightly as she looked around the old control center. It was a place built for war, for secrets, and now, for choices. She had learned more in the past day than she ever had in years of royal training. Her father had created this place. He had kept secrets about a power source buried deep below, a core of ancient energy that only her bloodline could access. She still didn't understand exactly what it could do, only that others would kill to control it. They won't stop, she said, her voice quiet. Even if we fight them off, they'll come back. Rowan didn't disagree. That's why we must protect the core at any cost. There is one final barrier between them and it. Your voice, your blood, your will. A loud alarm blared across the room. A new signal appeared on the monitor. Multiple heat signatures entering the tunnel. The enemy had breached the underground corridor. Naira turned to a reinforced hatch on the far side of the room. Beyond it was the stairwell that led down to the core. Rowan had told her only one person in the galaxy could unlock its systems. Her. The metal door slid open with a groan, and cold air drifted out. Naira stepped inside, following the flickering lights of the staircase. Her boots echoed with each step as she descended deeper into the heart of the base. At the bottom was a round chamber with walls covered in strange symbols and old tech. In the center hovered the core itself, a crystalline sphere, suspended by energy. It pulsed gently, like a giant, sleeping heart. Rowan's voice softened. Place your hand on the pedestal. It will recognize your genetic code. Naira approached the glowing platform in front of the core. Her fingers hovered just above it. What happens when I touch it? She asked. It will listen to you. But that power comes with risk. Just as her hand dropped onto the surface, the doors above slammed open. Footsteps stormed down the stairs. Naira turned to see the enemy leader entering the chamber. A tall figure in black armor with a red visor glowing like fire stepped forward. His name was Kraylin, the second in command of the raiders. She had heard the name whispered in fear, even in the palace. He was known for turning peaceful planets into graveyards. Princess, Kraylin said with a voice like gravel, you've led us on quite the chase. Naira didn't answer. He looked past her at the core. Do you even know what that thing is? Your father used it once. Burned half a star system to ashes just to win a war. Do you think that made him a hero? Naira felt her throat tighten. He did it to stop people like you. Kraylin laughed. He did it because he was afraid, and now you stand here afraid too. Rowan interrupted over the comm, his voice firm. Don't listen to him. He twists the truth. Naira stood still, her hand still resting on the pedestal. The core responded to her touch. Light spread from it like ripples in water. The room began to hum. Kraylin took a step forward, raising his weapon. You're not a warrior, girl. You're a key. And once we have your blood, we'll open the rest of the facility and take what's inside. Naira stared at him, fear battling with something. Stronger, resolve. She couldn't run anymore. She couldn't hide. If they took the core, they could destroy worlds. Her people. Rowan, she said, never taking her eyes off Kraylin. Is there a way to destroy the core? There was a long pause. Yes, Rowan said at last. If I overload its systems, it will collapse in on itself, become a singularity. It will destroy this base, and everyone in it. Kraylin's hand twitched. You wouldn't dare. Naira's jaw tightened. Try me. Rowan began the process. The core grew brighter, its hum rising to a deep, thunderous vibration. Kraylin charged. Naira stepped back as he rushed at her. But before he could reach her, a blast of energy knocked him off his feet. A small defense turret, activated by the core's pulse, had fired without warning. Naira looked down at the final control switch. Tell me when. Now, Rowan said. She slammed the switch. A blinding pulse of golden light filled the room. The core cracked, then shattered. The sound that followed was like the sky itself breaking apart. Energy exploded outward, collapsing. The walls, shaking the ground with the force of a dying star. Somehow in the chaos, Naira made it to the surface. Smoke and fire lit the sky as the ground below crumbled into nothing. She collapsed on a rocky hill, staring back at the place she had just destroyed. The moon groaned beneath her. The enemy ships in the sky began to fall back, retreating. Rowan's voice buzzed faintly. You did it. Her eyes filled with tears. Are you still with me? His voice was weak. Some of me. Enough. Naira looked up at the stars above. The crossroads had come and she had chosen her path. Not with fear, but with fire. The sky above the shattered moon was quiet again. Pieces of rock drifted through space like floating islands, glowing faintly from the heat of the core's destruction. Princess Naira sat alone in the cockpit of a small escape vessel, her hands resting on the controls. Her face was pale, her body sore and her heart heavy. The explosion that had consumed the underground base still echoed in her mind. She had destroyed the core to stop the enemy, but the cost felt too great. The moon was broken, the base was gone, and Rowan, her guardian, her guide through the chaos, had fallen silent. The silence inside the ship was deafening. Naira stared out the window at the scattered remains of the battleground. Her breath fogged the glass slightly as she leaned forward, Everything she had known, her safety, her beliefs, even her understanding of her father, had changed. She wasn't just a princess anymore. She was the last defense against something far greater than she ever imagined. But in this quiet moment, she didn't feel powerful. She felt alone. A sudden crackle came from the ship's comm system, pulling her from her thoughts. Unidentified vessel. This is the patrol ship Orion's Reach. We detected a massive energy collapse on the moon's surface. Identify yourself. Naira reached for the control panel, her voice rough from smoke and tears. This is Princess Naira of Veronai. I'm the only survivor. There was a long pause, then the voice returned, softer. We're locking onto your signal. Hold steady. We're bringing you in. Minutes later, a sleek gray ship came into view, moving carefully through the floating debris. A docking arm extended and connected with her escape pod. The hiss of pressurized air followed as the hatch opened. Several uniformed officers stood waiting. One stepped forward, a tall woman with silver in her hair and sharp, kind eyes. Princess, she said, bowing slightly. I'm Captain Lyra. Thorn, you're safe now. Naira nodded, barely able to hold herself upright. Captain Thorn helped her onto the larger ship, guiding her down clean, bright corridors that felt like another world compared to the darkness she had just escaped. She was taken to the medical bay, where her wounds were cleaned and her arm was bandaged, but no medicine could fix the ache in her chest. Later, as she rested in a quiet room, the bracelet on her wrist began to grow warm. Naira sat up, heart pounding. The bracelet had been her link to the Guardian AI, to Rowan. But since the explosion, there had been nothing, no voice, no signal, just silence. Now it pulsed softly, and then a familiar voice, faint but real, spoke. Princess, can you hear me? Her breath caught. Rowan, is that you? Yes, the voice said, weak but steady. My primary systems are gone, but I managed to transfer part of my core into the bracelet. I'm here, just less than I was. Tears spilled down her cheeks as she stared at the bracelet. I thought I lost you. You did, Rowan replied gently, but not completely. I couldn't leave you, not while there's still work to do. Naira wiped her eyes and looked out the window. The stars were endless, a sea of light across the black. For the first time, they didn't feel so far away. She wasn't just someone to be protected anymore. She had chosen to fight. She had made the hard call when it mattered. Captain Thorn entered the room holding a data tablet. We've picked up a signal, she said. Before the moon collapsed, a message was sent. We only decoded part of it. She handed the tablet to Naira. The message was short, but chilling. Project Ember initiated. Target, Veronai. Retrieval asset active. What does that mean? Naira asked. Thorn's eyes darkened. It means they're not finished. Someone survived, and they're coming. Rowan's voice added, they still believe you can unlock something else, another power. Project Ember might be their backup plan, and they'll want you for it. Naira stood up slowly, her strength returning. Then we stopped them before they reached Veronai. Thorn nodded. We're ready to follow your lead, Princess. Naira glanced down at her bracelet. Rowan's faint blue light blinked once. She took a deep breath, then turned toward the ship's bridge. When she arrived, the crew snapped to attention. She didn't feel like the same girl who had watched stars from behind palace windows. Now she stood as a leader, shaped by fire and loss. Set a course for the Andros belt, she said. If that's where the signal came from, that's where we go. The stars shifted in the window as the ship turned. Engines roared to life. The journey ahead would be long and the fight far from over. But she wasn't afraid. She had faced death, loss, and truth. She had chosen courage over comfort, and now she carried the spark of something new, a legacy not built on power but on purpose. As the Orion's Reach jumped into hyperspace, Rowan's voice whispered once more, together, we will finish what was started. And through the endless night, sparks of hope flew behind them, bright, bold, and unbreakable.